Okay. All right, we'll see you there. I don't know if Paul, well, it's 4 o'clock, so, you know, and it is a party, so cheers and
Cheers.
and it's a Colorado beer, Tommy Knocker. So this is our second of 2 physical products. There's Paula. Hi, Paula. She's logging in. This is our second of 2 physical products track events for Boulder Startup Week this year. And thank you for coming. Thanks for the team who put this together. The four people on this call make up the physical products track. So this, while I'm the guy who does the talking, is a team effort between all 4 of us to put this together. So, you know, personal thanks out to everybody. And here we are. First of all, I'm gonna take a drink. It's been really a long week.
Yes, it has.
Cheers to everyone online.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for coming. Thanks for, so part of our mission here, you know, the objective of the physical products track, which is now in its 2nd year, was to basically create some programming for startups. Since a lot of the programming seemed to have been geared towards tech companies and not the attributes that physical product. And there are commonalities across everything. You gotta sell your item. You gotta finance your business. You gotta deal with employees. You've got to deal with, you know, all kinds of different stuff. But there are elements that are specific to physical products that are different from digital products, and that's why the physical products track was created. And so given the limited amount of time and space this year, and the fact that we're not doing all these face-to-face meetings, and last year when we did, I think we have 7 panels, and I think every one of them was the hour-long panel, and then an additional hour of meeting people afterwards and talking and exchanging cards and following up, and hey, I'll talk to you about this. And so given the constraints and challenges of COVID and us all working from home, we said, how can we replicate that part of it? And frankly, since we're doing this all online, how can we extend it beyond this 1-hour event? And so this team came up with the idea of creating a Slack channel specifically for this community. And that is here.
No, I'm gonna tag on that a little bit.
Yeah, jump in, please.
Yeah, so as I've done sessions, both Boulder Startup Week, Denver Startup Week over the last 2 or 3 years, one question that inevitably comes up, and I would say it's probably the 2nd most common question that I get as a panelist, which is, how do I find people in the hardware and the physical product community? How do I find manufacturers? How do I find people who understand what I'm going through? What does that community look like? And so, you know, I think that this is a unique year in the fact that trying to figure out how we can make some community when we're all isolated certainly required a little more thought than in normal year. We just go on about ourselves because we can meet in person. But there have been different ideas tossed around over time that didn't really seem sustainable. And when this idea came up of a Slack workspace out of a discussion with Mike, Susan, and Paula, I thought that, you know, this is great for Boulder Startup Week, but it also seems to answer a desire within the physical product world within Colorado. So I'm actually really excited to be able to launch this during Boulder Startup Week, and hope that it will, like Mike said, extend out farther than just today, than just tomorrow, but it's something that we will be able to grow as a community and be able to generate the resources that people who are coming into the ecosystem don't even know where to go. So yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts.
Think of it as a Q&A in perpetuity.
Yes.
So, and you know, we've got, you know, there's the 4 of us, and I guess we could give our backgrounds a little bit too, so there's some context. I sometimes forget that we're doing video calls and there's an audience that I'm not looking at their faces. You know, I think everybody on this Zoom call has probably done a gazillion Zooms now in the last couple of months. I know it's my day, and today was particularly nutty. This is like my 10th one today. So I guess to rewind at the top, as a quick intro, I'm Mike Horn. I am a career entrepreneur. I've owned a number of different companies, primarily in pop culture merchandise space. What I mean by that is like, guys, products like this. This is one of the ones that I made at one of my previous companies, happened to have on my desk. So toys, collectibles, Comic-Con type products. And so I started my first business back in '94, and there was nothing like this then. And so what, like Jenny was saying, how do you find a manufacturer? How do you find, I just went out and figured it out and took a lot of lumps and made a lot of mistakes and hit a lot of pitfalls. So it's one of the reasons when I originally got asked to get involved in Startup Week a year and a half ago, it was with that in mind, that there wasn't anything like this when I started. And so if I can impart some wisdom or just tell a funny story, like the session the other day of just, you know what, we all make mistakes, then that's my way of giving back. So why don't you guys run through a little bit of your backgrounds as to how you're here and then how we can then support this community going forward.
So I'm Susan Krause, and I wanted to actually throw a shout out to Jenny, who actually did a lot of the work behind this Slack channel and doing all the setup for us. I mean, we brainstormed everything, but she actually did all the work to really get it set up and running. And it's an open channel for anybody, so you can actually recommend topics if you want to add to a topic that's possible. And we're really looking forward to trying to answer questions as they go forward. We're trying to start to populate it. There's not much on it yet, but we're starting to populate it with some topics and some ideas, some resources, etc. My company is Traxart Toys. We developed a construction set that's a play space for making mazes and games and robotic challenges, so kids can actually take this construction set, create a maze with some sensors in it, and robots can run around in this maze and be timed or gather points or whatever the kids invent. So it's a platform for them to invent their own games. So it's a great physical product. And I had great luck while I was doing it, because I worked actually a lot with a guy here in Longmont named Delphin, who had already also done a EduTech physical product. And so he'd worked with a lot of, he helped me from making a lot of mistakes, because he had his own set of mistakes. So every time he would let me know about the problem that he ran into, so I would avoid making that mistake. But he was also a great resource in connecting me with some manufacturing contacts as well. So he's been super great to work with, and I wanted to give a shout out to him. So we're in the early stages of the company. We did a Kickstarter last year, so that's another topic on our Slack channel to help people with Kickstarters. So literally anything you can think of, from soup to nuts, from rapid prototyping to ideation to manufacturing to whatever it is you might need going forward, all the way to launch. All those topics will be on the channel, and they'll slowly start getting more and more populated as people ask questions and other people just contribute some of the things that they've done or recommendations that they have.
Paula, you haven't talked yet, so you get to go next.
So hi everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Paola Shang. I am the founder and CEO of Tocket. And in Tocket, I always like to bring my little display because it's way easy. The Tockets are grippy socks. It holds the big toe and the rest of the toes are free. And we have multiple patterns in different designs and styles. And then Tockets has been in business for already 6 years, and we have grown in different ways. But we also have a lot of now accumulate knowledge, experience, good or bad, with Amazon. So this is also, I think, a big part of having a physical product. Amazon brings a lot of opportunities, but it's a big monster that is very important to know how to tackle it. Amazon also has big opportunities internationally. For example, in the last month with COVID-19, Amazon has contacted me to open in 3-4 different countries, and also to be part of one of their pilot programs. So I think for everyone, Amazon has tons of opportunities. And the idea of this channel is because we have many questions, and sometimes we don't know even who to contact or where to go. So for us, it's about sharing. And I think probably all of us know that the more questions you ask, the easier it is to get to this kind of very unique roller coaster of having a company, and then manufacturing, especially, that is also a big part of physical products. So please don't hesitate to ask any question. There is absolutely no silly question. Everything is accepted, and then we are here for you. And as we grow, we are going to bring more and more people that will be, great advisors for all of us.
Yeah, and anybody who happened to have attended Tuesday's session will know that, not only are, do those unexpected pitfalls and challenges and we all, but they continuously happen. Paula's story from the other day is, from just the last few weeks. So it's not like, oh, I stubbed my toe and it healed and now I'm a perfect business person and now we can move on. These things go on in perpetuity.
I just want to point out that we're not going to be the only people. I mean, we hope that everybody that participates will provide advice and references, not just the four of us. So the idea is that we grow a community of people that are providing ideas and answers and resources as we go forward. We're just trying to set the seed forward for this to really work. And, it is a little bit of an experiment, but we hope it'll be a great resource as we go forth.
Yeah, Susan, I was just thinking that there are a few subject matter experts in there, and certainly the three of you have been successful in developing and launching your own products, and you've learned, the trials and tribulations. And I think that, Susan, what's the name of your friend who up there? Forget the
Delphin.
I'm sorry?
Delphin.
Delphin, yeah, thank you. I mean, I know, Delphin was a good resource for you, and you met him at some event somewhere, and just kind of your paths, happened to cross. Whereas what we're trying to be is a little bit more intentional around creating a community so that you don't have to just go to 1,000 networking events hoping that you meet the right person or the right person who knows the right person. That said, the Front Range is a very, very small community, and so you're probably not more than 1 or 2 people away from anybody else here. So if you're looking for someone who has experience on Kickstarter, you have direct access to Susan. Susan did a Kickstarter. Or if you want to understand how Amazon works, I know Paula has lots of stories and ways that she's succeeded and the things that she struggled with there too. And so, but those are just things. I mean, my background is actually quite different than the three of you. I've worked for a lot of startups. More of them have been mid to late stage. And right now I work for an actual end-to-end product development firm. But in all of these, I've done a lot of product transfers. And so the challenges of taking a physical product, whether you're doing it on your own for the first time, or if you're within a smaller company and you're still developing new products and transitioning them into manufacturing, there's just kind of a process you go through. And I'm very familiar with what's involved in that process, the readiness, when a product is really ready to go into manufacturing. And then also, knowing where to find the manufacturers and how do you set those relationships up? How do you get attention when you're really small in a manufacturer to, answer the phone or address your concerns and whatnot. And so, so my background is different in that regard, but I mean, I work with a lot of startups even now and helping them work through those difficulties. And so I've been intentional about inviting some other people into the workspace that are also subject matter experts from industry. But again, those, the lessons that you learn in industry are very applicable and can help the startups along so that you can gain that knowledge. So anyway, we have people that we have in there. There's a couple of my coworkers, some in supply chain. We have some design people. So if you want access to mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and I will be intentional about inviting other people besides just the ones that I work with.
Well, the other thing too is that hopefully, as you grow, everybody who's joining this as a startup will then be, an advisor 6
Absolutely.
12 months down the road, 3 months, when you learn your lessons.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that, we also have a success channel and just celebrating the successes that we have with each other, knowing that, that it may not be fully understood within like a software environment, but when you receive your first part, it's a big deal when you've got that first prototype in your hand. We understand the mountain that has been climbed to get to that place. And so, celebrating that with you. So,
we had a question about whether they need a password and to get into the Slack channel, and they do not need a password, but I did think that maybe the next step we should do is bring up the Slack channel and kind of show it and walk through it.
Sure.
I'm not going to have it up. Or you want to do it, Jenny?
I was just going to do it.
Knock yourself out.
Okay, thanks. Share that.
Really cool logo too, by the way.
Yeah, we can thank my marketing intern for that, actually.
Awesome. That was well done.
Yeah, she did a great job on it. Okay, I am doing something very bad, didn't I? Hold on, I'll do it again. There we go. Sorry.
I don't know what, I see everything.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, there's a bunch of channels that are in here. You shouldn't need a password. In fact, if you're online and you are familiar with Slack, you could probably just go there now and join. Let me see. Can one of you type in the chat window, I guess, to everyone what the, yeah, thanks, Mike.
Well, I put it in. What is the address?
It's COLO-PhysicalProducts.
I always, Slack's one of those tools that once you get in, you only have to do this once.
I know.
If you use it at all on a regular basis, like most of us probably do, I just have the app available at all times. And like Jenny's one there, mine's the same. I got a whole bunch down my left hand, a whole bunch of icons.
So let's just talk through here. Let me see okay. So some of the channels we have, and again, these are not necessarily very populated. We've been starting there, but so we've got celebrating successes. We've got a couple designed for electrical and the mechanical channels. Things related to financial and fundraising. Raising funds when you're a physical product is a different world and different metrics and different things that you need than if you're a software company. So general channel is just what it said. Anything else that doesn't fit?
General and random are the ones that come pre-built into Slack,
right.
They're just always there.
Yep, exactly. Ideation. And so Susan, you created this one. I'll let you speak to that one a little bit.
So this is just kind of your first stage when you're starting to think that you want to do something. You might want to be in the hardware business. Maybe you've never done anything before. And so you might not have an awareness of the steps. And literally, of course, some steps are the same as if you're doing a software company. Like the first step really is market validation, and you don't have to have built anything. But there are some cool things. I just put a link in here earlier that Google has a great TED Talk about how they did rapid prototyping with Google Glasses, and basically we're using baling wire and cardboard. And even the first Google Glasses, or before the Google Glasses, they sent out the Google VR stuff, which were cardboard VR. And that probably came out of a rapid prototyping session. So there's lots of really good tools out there for doing those rapid prototyping. So we'll start posting some of those tools that are mostly free and available that kind of step you through the whole ideation process. So this is just a place where you're very first getting started. You have an idea, you don't really know what to do next, and gives you an idea how to get going. And
I think the important thing to note too is that there's no single way to tackle this stage. Paula, your product, you probably got a bunch of socks and some scissors and then tinkered. For me with action figures, back when we made this guy, it was physically sculpted out of super sculpey clay by a sculptor. Now it's done digitally. But so that idea of getting a visual representation of your idea might be drastically different depending on what kind of product you're making. It's just, somebody will have a suggestion as to how to best proceed.
I mean, for Canasian, we really did start off with a really fun day where we went, my co-founders are all recent University of Colorado grads. So we just went up to a CU classroom that was empty on a Saturday. And we took up a foam core board and dowels, and we went to Hobby Lobby in the hardware store and just looked for weird materials because we wanted to test some different kinds of materials. And I mean, it was really a fun day, and we literally took what we made there, made one more adjustment, and took that very first prototype, which was literally had vinyl cut from the hardware stores and these pegs that we made out of dowels, and took it to our first kids and really had them start testing it right away. And it was a zero. I mean, maybe we spent $20 or something, and we got great feedback. The kids were so inventive and so interesting to say, oh, I wish it did this, or I wish it did that. And we started really iterating and figuring out the best way to make this product do what the kids really wanted it to do. So that was a really fun time at the beginning.
Let's see, another channel we have in here is Kickstarter. So I have no experience with Kickstarter, but that's okay because Susan has lots of experience with
There's a comment
Kickstarter.
here, someone's trying to join and can't.
All right, let's see.
Trying to join the, so does it require that you actually accept a joiner, Jenny, or not?
Let's see. Looks like new, must be able to join. No.
We were intending to set it to where all you had to do was register, so you don't,
Right,
you
that's
don't have
what
to
I
get
did.
permission from any of us.
And we've had other people register without having to do anything, right?
Right. I'll tell you, Seth and Kunta, go ahead and send me your email address, and I'll just send you a direct invite because I know you can get in through that, and I'll find out why you're not getting automatically dumped in here because you should be. So.
Well, yeah, okay. Did you get in, Kunta? Has anybody, oh, I was just curious if anybody else has tried right now. It'd be great to hear if they tried and they did get in.
I don't think so because I'm not seeing anybody new jump in there. So, suggest I need an email from a certain domain. No, that's not true. All right.
We're flying without a net here, people.
All right. See, thank you for helping us work through this. This is great.
Right. See, no matter how experienced you are, there's always a challenge that you didn't.
I know, right?
Next year we'll say, remember that time when we launched a Slack channel and nobody could join?
Right. Yeah, we'll tell that story. Exactly.
We just talk to each other.
Pierce, if you want to send me your email, I'll go ahead and do that too.
Yeah. Anyway, the idea here is obviously we want it to be public, and we want to have, the bigger the community, the more successful it'll be, the more interaction there is, the more it'll self-perpetuate.
Okay, I know what to do now. Thanks, Seth. That helps me figure out what I need to do to fix it. Okay.
Yeah, Kunta put his email up there too, so.
Yeah, I got Kunta's and did Pierce put his? I don't see it. I got Seth and Pierce and Seth and Kunta invited. So you all should be getting emails.
You did invite me now that I think back to that, so that we probably need a setting change that lets people join.
All right, Pierce, let me get you invited.
While she's doing that, why don't we, if you want to continue to kind of do a review, although it looks like everyone's trying to join.
Okay, I'll go work on making it more open.
And I'll reopen the Slack so we can just go channel by channel.
Thank you.
Talk about what we're doing.
Yeah, I left off at Kickstarter.
So Kickstarter is, somewhat self-explanatory, obviously. However, there are so many nuances, and this is really talking about crowdfunding. It could be Indiegogo. It's just the brand name Kickstarter is meaningful.
Yeah, we might change that to crowdfunding.
Yeah, we could, but the only difference is that the WeFunder as a crowdfunding source for equity is very different than crowdsourcing your product, which really is Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and I guess to some extent Amazon Launchpad. Those are really the three that people know of, and even Amazon Launchpad's not quite in the same groups. They would probably hate to hear that. But the idea here is that there are a myriad of tricks and tips and pitfalls regarding those things. And if you don't do them correctly, you can have the absolute greatest invention. You can have a machine that turns $1 bills into $100 bills for free, and if people don't find it on Kickstarter, it's not going to turn into anything. So So the idea here is in our team, Susan's done a Kickstarter, but we'll get a couple other Kickstarter experts who really have spent time. I know the couple that I've been involved with, I immediately went out to the world and said, let me find somebody who knows what they're doing.
We have another person asking how to join.
Pretty common question.
Okay, they should be all fixed. Have you gone back and retried in the last 2 minutes?
There's a new one. Oh, so that they should be able to join now without.
They should be able to join. I changed the setting.
Ask him to try again.
Yep.
I see some new ones here. So legal patents, trademarks, pretty straightforward. Again, none of us are attorneys. We're not going to give you legal advice. We're going to give you feedback as to how you should navigate, that thing. Does your idea need a trademark? Does it need a patent? There are basic things you can do. Trademarks are very easy to deal with. You can, just go to in fact, we'll put it on here. uspto.gov is a fantastic resource that you can search for trademarks and patents. I search for trademarks constantly on that site. So whenever I come up with an idea for a brand name or something like that, that's where I start.
I'll be posting some really great resources. I use the University Patent Clinic, which you have to apply to, and they have to have nothing that competes with what you're already working on. So they have been awesome. I've been working with them for 3 years. My patent actually just got issued, which is super exciting. They're really good. Like, they use senior law students. They have an advising firm above them that reviews everything before it gets submitted. They really walk you nicely through, and they pass each semester. They pass on to the junior guy, becomes a senior guy, and you get a new junior person. And I've been really impressed with them and how they've gotten me through the process. It's a learning experience for them. So we're kind of giving back to them, and it doesn't cost anything except for the fees you have to pay. So it's a huge cost savings if you're a startup.
Yeah, and well, out of my own experience, and one day I will tell you the story and you will be amazed, but I would say if you have an idea and you have a name, be quick and try to trademark it as soon as you can if it's available, because things change so fast and there is a window between when you trademark and someone else trademarks, and that even you cannot see who is in there, and it can be tricky, and it's really not expensive, but later on can save you tons of time and money.
Yeah, and another thing about the trademark, which caught me up forever with Amazon, is if you do have a unique product that you've developed, Amazon, eventually you want to use their brand services, and that's to hopefully protect you from people that try to duplicate your product and then make it look like it's just your product. And so they have some tools, and Pilot has some terrible stories with Amazon on that. But it took the trademark office 6 months from the time I applied to actually get my trademark approved. So make sure you do it really early, because while you're developing product, your trademark can get approved and be ready so that when your product's ready, you can launch on Amazon right away. You can launch without the trademark, but you can't get the trademark protection in the brand registry without it.
And there are some tricks you could do with that. You could just publish a website and have first in use rights to kind of establish that trademark belongs to you. But
that
again,
doesn't help with Amazon though.
No, but it will help to when you want to establish that you've got a trademark.
Right.
But the idea, again, none of us are patent attorneys or trademark attorneys. This is just, we're gonna, we'll tell you what we know. Look, at some point we may get a trademark attorney or patent attorney who joins us and just says, hey, in this case, use this resource. In this case, give me a call. The takeaway here is that this can be a very intimidating subject, and it can get very expensive very quickly. So, but there are some things you can do to protect yourselves without necessarily going full legal on day one.
So I can't tell, have those other people actually joined the channel now? Because I'm
not seeing them be added.
I see down here these people popped up since.
Oh yeah, a bunch of them. Good, cool.
So.
Awesome.
Somebody posted something to general. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the way that I have this set up is that I'm going to have to, and I need to go see how I can change just that basically anybody who's in it can send an invitation to someone else. And so it kind of helps to qualify who gets in a little bit. So send me your email addresses and I will send you an invite.
But
Kunta was
sometimes-
in, Pierce was in, good. You both got invites. Okay.
But you're changing that so people can just get in now without doing that, because if they have to know someone to actually get invited, that might be pretty tricky to get in.
That might be a Slack thing.
I only have two choices. I can only approve email. I can only approve, and I need to go find a different setting. But the only ones that I have is that anybody can send an invitation, and then or I can just approve domains. So
gmail.com.
could do that.
So again, we'll just buzz through these channels here. And by the way, too, again, like if there's a channel that you'd like that's not on here, either add it or ask someone to add it. You know, these were the ones that we thought of kind of from our own experience, but it's that you need to know more than just these 15 or so to run a company.
So Kunta, your question about you can't see all the channels. If you go up to the plus button and add channels, you can get, browse channels that'll give you the full list. Since not everyone wants to be part of everything, I decided not to dump everybody into all of them. So, but you can actually just do a selection of which channels you want to be. Mike has all the channels available, I think.
It's dog walk time in my home, in case you didn't hear that.
It's dog walk time.
Yeah. Oh, Scotty says it's dinner time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's dinner time for my dogs.
Oh, cool. By the way, that's one of my favorite elements of this modern Zoom era. I love it when people's kids walk in the room and dogs come in. I just think it's fun.
It makes us all real people.
Yeah, like who cares, you know? Logistics, inventory, shipping, customs. The other day I told a funny story about a product that got held up in customs because we had the word radioactive on our cartons. There are all kinds of things that can happen in this. Getting a good, I'll tell you another, I'm blending the content of the last one, but we had, using physical products, we commonly use 3PLs to do our fulfillment for us, third-party logistics. So you hire some warehouse that brings your container in, breaks it down, puts it in their warehouse, and then they ship out your orders for you. And so this is early on. This is even before we were doing direct consumer. We had some product some 3PL in LA, and again, you know, I was making these collectibles type items that have high value, and we're very specifically like, do not double stack our pallets. And I went to visit them, and they had my product stacked up like 8 or 10 pallets high. The bottom ones were crushing. And then on top of it, I went and walked around the office, and they had just taken some of these were like $300 retail statues, and they were just sitting on people's desks in the cubicles. Like, they just helped themselves to my product to decorate their office. So yeah. So
Awesome. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh gee, why not? So, you know, 3PL is, you know, having somebody move your stuff for you. It's you kind of think, oh, they're all the same. They're just gonna stick a label on and go. They're not. So this channel will, you know, we'll try to educate you and answer questions on best ways to handle that. Getting a good freight forwarder is really important if your product needs to be made overseas and brought into the U.S. That in itself can be a complication, and you know, so there's all kinds of stuff that goes on with that. Boy, manufacturing, that's a broad topic, but right, products don't make themselves. So, you know, and again, depending on what kind of product you're making, you know, I know, Paula, your story, I mean, you started thinking you were going to make it in China, and then you went to some other Asian countries, and you ended up in Colombia, where you're from. So, you know, you wouldn't have thought you'd make, gee, I want to make socks, let's make them in Colombia. I would have started in Pakistan or Vietnam or somewhere in Asia.
No, and I think this is I always highlight the importance of asking questions. And when people say no to you, there is always the last question to ask is like, if you cannot do it, you know who can do it. And then sometimes there is a bunch of options there. And that's what happened to me. One company here in the US at the end kind of gave up on my product and said, I think your product is too complicated and etc. So I said, okay, if you cannot do it, who can? And then he sent me a list of 3 factories. And then one of them, all based in the US, and one of them, I recognized the accent, and I was like, you guys speak Spanish? Yeah. Are you guys from Colombia? Yeah. Like, what? And then this is how it started. And then it was like, wow. I didn't know, but that could be a possibility and make things easier. And actually, for example, other things that it's very important to look now, especially between the relationship between the US and China. It's like the US has tons of free trade agreements with all other countries. And then, for example, I'm taking advantage of that. And then when I bring the product here, I don't have to pay absolutely anything in duties or any tariffs, anything. Whereas if I was manufacturing in China, I would, right? And with the terms of trade now, that wouldn't be that good. So if you go a bit beyond what common sense is, because there are tons of possibilities out there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of specific stuff you wouldn't think of. You know, you might not have built a P&L for your product, and you know everybody's P&Ls are different. My P&L for an action figure, it probably looks hugely different than your P&L for a toeless sock. You know, I have things like tooling, you really don't. I have royalties, you don't. You've got import duties, I don't. I mean, it's like, you know, there's a lot of different elements that go into that. So.
Right.
So you guys just made me think. I just added a banking channel because I learned some pretty cool stuff this week. I changed my banks because I started with a bank that ended up not being a great bank to work with in business. They just didn't have the logistics I expected because I'm working with China a lot. And so I recently just changed to Chase, and wiring money back and forth to China to pay for goods can be, can chew away cash. It's like between $35 and $50 or $60.
And also the ones that are in the Stone Age where you have to go into the branch to.
Well, that was my problem. I had to go in there and have them type all the crap in.
Yeah.
So, but on top of that, I just discovered that Chase has a deal where they have global transfer, and if you transfer into the currency that you're sending the money in, it's free, or it's $5 or something. If it's under $5,000 transaction, I think it's free. I mean, that's a huge difference between paying 35 or 50 bucks every time you have to pay a bill. So I think banking, figuring out who the business account, what your needs are, those are things that I had to go research and figure out what banks, and I thought I found the right bank and it was not the right bank. And so I decided to switch. And by the way, Chase right now has a deal where you can get $400 for your startup if you go open an account with them and do 5 transactions in the first 60 days and have $1,000 balance. So like, I don't know any startup that wants to pass up $400. So,
yeah.
And that reminds me of what happened now, like with all the COVID-19 and with the PPP. Like depending on your bank, it really will indicate if you were going to get the PPP soon or later. And for example, I banked initially with Citibank. But Citibank has done zero, absolutely nothing for me, for the business. Luckily, last year, at the end of the year, I opened a bank account in a completely different bank. And then I contact them. And I really didn't have much money in that bank account, but I contacted them to apply through them for the PPP. They were super fast. I was one of the first businesses that got the PPP. And then I could rehire my employees. And actually, I discovered so many things about this bank that is so beneficial for me, especially because I also do a lot of business internationally. So banking is key.
Yeah,
it's very, very important. I mean, I discovered how important it is to have someone that you can really talk to. Because unfortunately, with COVID, you cannot go to a branch, right? I didn't have anyone that I could talk to in Citibank. And by the way, Citibank doesn't have even a branch in Colorado. So it was a nightmare. But luckily I had this other bank at Plan B. So my advice is, if you can manage 2 bank accounts, different, and then you start testing according to your business needs, and you will see that there are tons of differences between one bank and the other.
The other takeaway from that is that I think that, oh, and by the way, look, we're misspelled. I think that if this is nothing else, while we've been on this call, we thought, oh, here's something that needs a question answered. So, you know, this is not a set it and forget it type of deal.
Right. So on this banking thing, I had no idea that, I mean, I don't have employees, so I didn't apply for the PPE, but apparently a bunch of banks were really good at accelerating people's applications and getting money for their PPP. And I'm thinking, most people are just going online and applying and hoping something's going to happen, but somehow or another, the banks were able to really help people to get their PPP. So yeah, little teeny things like that can make a huge difference for a startup.
Yeah, and it wasn't supposed to work that way in the banks, by the way. It was supposed to put everybody on a level playing field, but it just, you know, it was pushed through so quickly and the rules were not clear. Yeah, because I don't have employees either, but I applied for the PPP and I got it. So, further channels, marketing is pretty straightforward, but you know, there's all kinds of different things there. And again, you know, making and marketing a physical product does have things different. You're not encouraging downloads, so there are different things you got to deal with. You know, are you pre-ordering? Are you driving to an e-commerce site? Are you sending people to Target? The other thing that I personally, I'm biased on because of my background, and I remember very distinctly from last year, is that a lot of times your physical product, your company might have nothing to do with consumer products. I come from a consumer products background, so I immediately associate, you know, 3 of the 4 of us, do most of our time in consumer facing. But Jenny was one that brought it to my mind. You know, there's a countless amount of companies that make physical products that never sell to the end consumer. And so there's a marketing effort with that has to be done. And so, and I guess really that theme could be layered across all of these things.
And I'm doing both B2B and B2C, so I think that happens a lot too. You're selling.
They need marketing too, yeah. But you know, if you're a component maker that you know your product ultimately goes to the end consumer, whether it routes through a retailer or goes direct to consumer. Same with Paula, same with most of the stuff I've done. But there are countless companies that make
hospitals.
Those you come up with a million things. So so we'll just in this remaining 15 minutes we'll buzz through these last couple and then hopefully we'll start populating this and start having some dialogue here.
I will say this, that being that you guys are kind of the initial group so if you have friends or know people, business relationships or whatever, send out invitations. You should be able to do that and help us grow the community. So I'll throw that out there.
And I'll throw out that I need a refill.
Okay, you do that. that was my fill-in while you went and got another beer.
That's right. Also another Colorado beer. Prototyping, which again, you know, same thing. There's prototyping used to be straightforward. There's a lot of different ways to do that now, depending on what you're trying to do. Maybe you're an apparel company, your prototypes can be way different than if you're a machine parts company or a toy company. So there's a ton of different options for you based on what you do and how you do it. Random's one of those ones that just comes pre-plugged. I find every Slack board I'm on, the random channel ends up being usually something trying to be funny.
Comic relief, mostly, yeah.
Relief. And frankly, usually is the channel that barely gets any attention. All right, regulatory and certifications. This is
EMI. If you need to get through EMI and FCC and you want to know where to start, we just need to put Dennis's contact information in here because that's the guy to go to. If you've got problems, there's RF Response. They used to be local there in California, but they'll still help you.
So we had here's an example of product that we made. This is it's just a, actually, wait, wrong one.
You've got like great props there all around your desk, Mike.
I do. This is the one I wanted to call for this. This guy right here. So this is a USB hub. It's basically an action figure disguised as a USB hub. We went through months of holdup because it has a little speaker. When you plug something in, I have it turned off because it gets kind of annoying. But if you know who this character is, it'll make sense. When you plug something in, he talks. So because I had a speaker, when it went through testing, the testing lab wanted to get an FCC regulation. Well, it doesn't broadcast, but we probably spent 2 months doing roundabout. And, like I said, I'm 25 years at this. That's a hang up that we shouldn't have. So,
there's also other regulation too. Like for me, my product, I had to have the no choking 3-year-old, but I had to also send it through a lab because the US and Europe have specific regulations for toxicity for toys. So you have to get, and here's things that you're putting together your budget as a startup. What things do I need to budget for? And you might not realize that you need a budget item just specifically for getting things tested. So, because particularly if I tried to sell, and I'm not on the shelf and don't really intend to be, but if I was on the shelf, a lot of companies won't even sell your product unless you can give them the certification.
Retail, again, I come from the license world, so a lot of licensors have requirements. You have to use, if you do anything with Disney, and Disney companies, Marvel, Star Wars, you have to use a Disney approved factory. And so there's certifications for that. And a lot of times the factories will get themselves certified to take your order. They'll jump through those hoops. But if you don't even know that exists, which you probably don't, those are things you got to be aware of.
I think there are also other certifications that even if they're not mandatory for a specific product, they can also help in terms of branding, visibility. Like, for example, the women-owned business, certifying women-owned business,
Yep.
or like certified a small business, or if you are part of a minority group, that business can be also certified. It is also good to register for SAM, the System for Award Management. That is the system that the government uses, the federal government uses in order to source. And then anyone can really get certified, but those like SAM, for example, Amazon said, like, if you have SAM, you are SAM certified, or you have registered for SAM, and please add it. And all of those things help you, and also to get credibility, especially because nowadays there's so much competition and everyone is trying to copy, or not everyone, but some countries are trying to copy, for example, your product. All the certification make your product even more valid and acceptable. And for example, for me, even getting the women-owned business certified has helped me to get into conversations with companies that have only focused or have noticed that certification, and they want to work with that type of business. Yep. So, and they're more simple to get, that probably just a mandatory certification, but I find it very helpful.
Yeah. And there are all kinds of, some companies are mandated, they have to buy a certain percentage from a women-owned business or a minority-owned business, or whatever qualification it is. And so, if you happen to be a woman or a minority woman, you might be, use every advantage you have.
Absolutely.
I'm half Japanese. I have marked myself as Asian since I was a teenager. Everything I do. It's not a lie, so. Okay, so the resources thing is like, everybody recommends, oh, you got to read this book, you got to read that book, and you got to watch this YouTube video, you got to do that. So this is just a repository for that, and this will populate probably pretty quickly. We talked a little about Amazon before, so we made an Amazon specific sales channel. Where this is going to be related to selling on Amazon. As you all know, there's so many elements of Amazon, but really this is, how do you sell on Amazon? What's the best way to do it? And it may even be as simple as find the right Amazon specialist, which in and of itself is a challenge. So what's the startups channel? I don't remember this one. This is just like a catch-all, right?
Mostly, I think it's related to It's a little different than ideation. You actually have a company formed, and it's just there. I mean, there's going to be startups in here in general, but this is more specific problems that don't fit into another channel related to being a startup company. So,
yeah.
I think I just want to note that probably some resources are going to be within the topic. So, for example, I threw in the link to the CU Law Clinic in the legal area, and I probably won't replicate that under general resources as well, but they might show up in both places, but people will probably be putting resources in all channels at some level.
This thing will evolve.
Yep.
The last one we have as of now, if you check back tomorrow, as evidenced by this, there'll probably be new channels. Just kind of in general, just about navigating that myriad of suppliers and sources. I can tell you, and I think everybody on here can tell you, that jumping on Alibaba and finding some factory that looks like what you want to make is when you find that listing, you're going to be like, aha. And the reality is, the odds of that being a factory that can do what you need to do, needle in haystack.
Okay, sorry. I have 2 success stories of Alibaba, so I have to refute
two
that.
needles.
Well,
I found that
I'm going to go with, I'm with Mike on this. It's 2 needles. I mean, I don't use it, and I do supply chain all the time, but
yeah,
it's changing though. It's just changing fast. You just have to know which ones are crap and which aren't, and you just.
And it's hard because a lot of times what you get on Alibaba, when you contact a company on Alibaba, what you get is not a subject matter expert, but the person who speaks English.
yeah, there's a lot of reps in there, a lot of reps. But anyway, Susan, tell us your story. Go ahead, tell us your story.
So one of them is a really good story. So when we very first started to manufacture, we were going to manufacture with a company that manufactures all of Spiro's products, which is a Disney company, and they're expensive. And I mean, all of their NRE, which is the like tooling and stuff like that, non-recurring engineering costs were really expensive. And so I needed to have a bag done, and I asked, they'd never really done a bag. I'm like, well, we have our product ships in this kind of backpack, string backpack, so that kids can just carry it around on their back. So they sent me a sample, and it was just total crap, and it was going to be $3.50. And I went on Alibaba, and I found a really small female company that, it's probably, who knows, it could have dirt floors for all I know, but they sent me a whole bunch of samples right away of products they've already made. I got probably 5 samples, different materials, and then worked back and forth with them. Great. They did the silk screening. They did the tags on the bags. They didn't make, the only mistakes that they made were because I didn't look close enough and should have had them do it a little bit differently. So we're going to improve our next round a little bit, but I guess you will never guess how much those bags cost me. It was 87 cents a bag, and they're nice, huge, big bags. They're really well made.
And I guess to some extent, that part of Alibaba wouldn't exist if it wasn't somewhat productive. I just found, it might be, and Jenny, you and I are similar in this regard, that we started our China manufacturing careers before there was an Alibaba. And so,
right.
We've, walked this, I've been to the sourcing fairs in Hong Kong and Shenzhen and walked the trade show and talked to people I have found that Alibaba has been needle in a haystack.
My second story is about foam tiles. So we customize foam tiles, like those foam tiles that you use in playrooms and stuff like that. So we needed a custom die cut foam tile, specific colors, densities, all this stuff. And I've probably found one of the biggest foam tile manufacturers in China through Alibaba, and they've been awesome. And they sent me their brochures. The guy communicates with me regularly. He's been awesome on email. The detail back and forth has been really good. And they've worked really urgently for me when I needed things quickly. They were very responsive. So, everyone talks about going to China, and now we can't go to China. And we talked about that a little bit on Tuesday. And I do think that this world's transforming to a place where, yeah, you are going to get some bad factories if you're not careful. And I maybe just got super lucky, but there's going to be a lot more Slack communication. Like my manufacturer that Delphin introduced me to, he's on Slack every morning because he does the second shift, and I can communicate with him during normal hours. And he's also very responsive and done a great job for me. So I'm having really good luck with this online communication and not actually having to go to mainland China to get.
Well, and also not every project, you know, going to China in addition to everything else. And again, I know we're sort of fixating on China. There are a lot of other places in the world that manufacture. Again, Paula can attest to, but you know, physically getting on a plane, forget COVID, physically getting on a plane and traveling, you know, halfway around the world and spending a week to deal with some manufacturing issue, it's a huge distraction, not and an expense. And you might, you know, maybe you're only making a $10,000 worth of product. Are you going to spend $8,000 in travel to get there? You know.
And, you know, Mike, it's funny you say that. I did a study 2 years ago on the costs associated with doing manufacturing in China, just the overhead cost, and it came out to about, it's $1.50 is what it came out to, and I was like, well, if I can get a unit price for $1.25 in the U.S., then I've saved myself a quarter. Right. That's not always true, but that was just because I mean it's expensive. Yeah, you figure you've got to go over about once a quarter to Susan, I'm going to tell you, you have a very unique experience. It's not. Well, I'll just say that.
My product isn't super complicated either, so.
Yeah, but for example, I remember when I started, and my first samples came from China, and literally, when I started, I had the idea in my head. I didn't know anything about manufacturing anything. Like designing, my background was in foreign affairs, so nothing to do with. And then I newly arrived from. I was living in Europe, and I arrived to LA. And then I just sent, I think it was Craigslist, where I put like, hey, I have an idea and I want to make like a textile product. If you work on that, can you please contact me? And these people start contacting me, and this is how I started. Eventually, I found a factory, so I want to do the first prototype, etc. But when I got the first stock, oh my God, what a disaster! And then the grippers start falling off. I just could feel them like this. It was terrible. And of course, the price was very low, and it was a long process. But for me, personally, I love going to the factory. There's an advantage of speaking the same language. I think in whatever language you speak, if you can go find a factory where you speak the same language, to me there is an advantage, because that will give you entrance to talk to people that actually made your product.
Yeah.
Because in factories, for me, the big issue is like you go from a manager to a supervisor to another supervisor to a team supervisor, and you go around, and by the time you never have access to people that actually are correct making the product. And for me, the big change has been the moment when I could just, go over all those barriers of so many hierarchies, and then just talk to the people. And at that moment, literally because I had a very strict quality control, the rejection product went from 23% to 0.4%, which is people click. But I understand, like now probably it's going to be different, because people are going to be more scared of traveling, or even we are not able to do it. But I will miss it. I have also had many new ideas just by talking to people.
No, there is definitely value in going to the factory and understanding what their capabilities are and what they can do. And I personally have been to China countless times, 20, 30 times. I don't know. I will say this: one of the all-time greatest pleasures was when I upgraded from to business class.
You can't go back after you do that, though.
I haven't. It's funny how then, like, the next trip where I needed to go, but I wasn't going business, like I didn't really need to go. Oh,
I do know. I know really well, Mike.
It makes a big difference. But the other thing too is, if you have a good broker, the broker is not simply going to the factory, putting a markup on and getting in the middle. They're not a middleman. A middleman to me is not providing value. And a good broker can do a lot of that communication. Now, it can't do the ideation like Paula was referencing, where you could sit there and look and say, oh, I got an idea. Can you do this? Can you do that? But a lot of day-to-day stuff can be handled very effectively if you have a good broker. And again, find a good broker, because there's a lot of bad ones. I could tell some funny stories to go back to that motif. I could tell some funny stories about bad brokers, because I went through some bad ones before I found good ones.
So we're at 5 o'clock, Mike. Maybe we need to wrap up.
Yeah. So the takeaway here is, we've been kind of just going through our channels and talking about what we're doing. And, there's 4 of us here who are experienced in most of these. We're going to add more people who also have experience. Every one of you who's listening is going to eventually become experienced, and you could be on this panel next year and telling your story to somebody else. But, the idea here is that we can, with this tool, Boulder Startup Week can become Boulder Startup forever, right?
So one thing that I just did, I just added a question on the general channel, and for those of you who have joined, if you just introduce yourself, let us know why physical products interest you. Why is it important to you? Why are you here? We'd like to get to know you all too.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody showing up. Appreciate the team here for being here for this hour, plus the countless hours in advance of this, both last year and this year, and going forward to next year. So with that, I think we'll wrap, and we'll see you on Slack, and we'll see you hopefully in person this time next week. All right. See everybody.
Bye.